close the gate. I knew you could do it. This is our chance to launch a counterattack. I need you to come with us. You've got far more combat experience than these men. Are you able to join us now? I can wait, but not for long. We've got to move quickly before they have a chance to...
We should really go to an armor smith and get our armor repaired first.
The longer we wait,
Yeah, okay.
the smaller our window of opportunity.
I wonder if this is actually timed, or if we could just fuck off for another 30 episodes and then come back and he's like, oh, good, you didn't take too long.
Oh, I guarantee you could fuck off. So, what I was actually going to say was about Cyberpunk 2077.
What were you going to say about Cyberpunk 2077?
How much more charitable I am towards it after they fixed a lot of the bugs. Because, like, there's a lot about it that doesn't work, but thinking about Skyrim and Oblivion and Fallout 4 really does raise up to me how much more exciting an ambitious, audacious, weird failure is than kind of a successful mediocrity.
Yeah.
I still have weird feelings about Cyberpunk because it really does feel a lot to me like Vampire the Masquerade in terms of specifically Bloodlines, like specifically the Sword Engine RPG.
How may I help you?
Yeah, you play Bloodlines and you remember a lot of it because it's like, oh yeah, that was really interesting. It felt like that felt like something that was made by specific people with a specific vision.
You got it.
Well, it also is like buggy as all heck. A lot of it doesn't work. The combat is terrible. But like,
there's just stuff in it that's randomly gross that like you go back to it and you're like, God, I forgot about that. Holy shit.
But then there are moments, like these really amazing little nuggets of like, holy shit, this game actually like let me solve the problem in the exact way I thought I should be able to, and it totally rolled with it, and it was great. Like every quest or two, there's a moment like that, and it just feels like the most amazing game you've ever played. And even when it was buggy, Cyberpunk was like that. And now that it's less buggy, but still simply deeply flawed, I'm certainly more empathetic towards it.
I think I agree with you. I think that, like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, it has these moments that give you a kind of subtle reward for playing, a subtle subjective reward for playing, in a way that a game like this, like a game like a more recent Bethesda games, particularly, like less frequently do. Where when you're playing it, it's all of your rewards are very, like, kind of over the board, like, anybody can... This is something anyone can enjoy. Whereas there aren't as many moments where you're like, this connected with me in a specific, direct way.
Well, our horse is just here.
The other funny thing about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, since you're talking about how janky it is, the stealth in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, for anyone who was thinking about trying it, is so fucking outrageously broken. You can literally put 1 point in it, and then just sneak around killing almost every enemy in that game with, like, a billhook. Like a gardener's billhook.
Oh, that's
so they were abandoned here? I feel bad for these guys.
Which guys?
The demons you're murdering.
Oh, like,
well,
the people left over from the unsuccessful first wave of the invasion.
Yeah, I guess there aren't any more active Oblivion gates around. But...
Just imagining a bunch of, like, Viking raiders, like, pillaging a town, and then Chris just being like, oh, their boat left.
Damn it. Oh, boy.
I mean, there probably is a reasonable conversation about how intelligent these scamps are versus how enthusiastic they are about this whole invasion.
So, we kind of tapped on this last time we played. the townsfolk and a lot of the religions believe that this is happening because the bloodline has been severed, and we know it hasn't been. But
well,
is that what's happening? Is it because he has not taken the mantle of king and
yes.
and completed the restoration fantasy? Okay,
so
it very much is happening.
If you remember how I talked about like 30 episodes ago, we were talking about the sewers under the Imperial City and how they were super huge, and I was like, yeah, well, like super ancient elves actually built it, and it at the tower in the center is like the dragon fire is basically a big bonfire or whatever that basically projects a shield around the world that makes it very difficult for Daedra to just show up. And that has to be renewed whenever the Emperor dies by the next Emperor. It has to be someone who has to be a Dragonborn, which is funny because that's what we are in the next game. And they have to use the Amulet of Kings to light the dragon fires and restore that shield. And because Martin is hanging out here and not in the Imperial City, that hasn't happened yet. So that's why all of this is going down the way it is. Also, the cult that murdered the Emperor was intentionally trying to make this happen, so...
I have a weird point, or like a weird argument, and I'm not sure I really have the heart to prosecute it, but I'm going to put it forward anyway. If this was like a myth that existed, or like a novel, like a good fantasy novel or something, this story you just mentioned would mean something,
It's
right?
safe to pull those people out of the chapel. Let's get in there.
I don't mean like it would be a
That it
metaphor
would have like an
necessarily.
Aesop.
This is only the beginning.
I don't think that it would necessarily directly be an Aesop, but it would in some way reflect the values of the culture of the author that created it, right? Like, inevitably, it would speak to some kind of tension or some kind of anxiety or like...
But that's because it's reverse engineered from the way it would be in reality, right? Like, because in reality, we would have a rumor or a myth or a legend that we would tell ourselves about if this ever happened, the world would end. And of course, that'll never happen. And then it does, and the world ends, and the events are nightmares coming true and would reflect on our society. But this is reverse engineered because they started with, we're going to make a game called Oblivion because we think demons are cool. And then they had to reverse engineer why demons are invading. And then that's what they arrived at was, oh, there's a legend where if you kill the Emperor and someone doesn't succeed him, that'll happen.
It's the smell.
Yeah, like even if you look at Dark Souls, like, I'm not saying that, like, the person, like, they literally sat down to write Dark Souls as some kind of analogy or metaphor, like, they're like, this symbolizes that. But Dark Souls definitely has a vibe to it, and, like, themes to it that are very much actively reinforced by the nature of its central conflict. Like... I think that this is something that people tend to argue less about because you don't even really need media literacy to get it. You can just kind of notice that the story kind of feels like how the gameplay feels like.
I'm not sure I want to have anything to do with it.
See, I thought you were going towards more this thing where the king, the emperor, is the only one who can save the realm and protect it, reflects on perhaps the author's fascination with monarchy.
I mean, like,
it is a restoration
like traditional.
It does have, yeah.
If you came to me,
like the fact that
anyway,
it is literally a. Oh, go.
Look around. What good is it?
I said this is Sean Bean. We have met Sean Bean in the Oblivions, the only other person they spent money on for voice acting.
Like, if you were to read a good novel. Yeah, if you were to read a good novel about this, you would expect, like, this storyline, you would expect to, like, have some idea of, like, if not how the author felt about it, or, like, how, like, the author thinks about this, that at least, like, what other cultures the author is inspired by when writing it, right?
Strange,
But I'm just thinking about what it actually feels like in this game, and, like, how, if I was to, like, try to find a theme or like an idea or like some kind of emotional connection. I'm not terribly surprised that I haven't found anything, but it is kind of a starkly missed opportunity, isn't it?
Wayne and Priory.
No.
And hear what Joffrey has to say.
I think it's because this is a pastiche of other stuff, right? Like the wayward rightful king is something that is a trope, right? You find it even in Lord of the Rings with Aragorn, and that's basically what they're doing. They're riffing on Aragorn here, not exactly, but in a similar way, right? Like he's just a bastard son of the king that ran away and doesn't even know that he's got royalty in his blood, and it's our job to return him to the rightful place, etc. But why are we doing that? For any big thematic reason? No, we're doing it because that's what you do in a big fantasy epic.
Tried to convince them it was dangerous, but they left
Yeah.
anyway.
We've done it.
But that perfunctory nature is what makes it feel soulless, right? There is no... They did not do this in a considered or thoughtful way about what they wanted to say. They did it because Lord of the Rings came out a couple years before, and it's like, let's do that.
We'll need to get
And
inside.
the thing is, when there isn't anything else to it,
You've come this far with
you
us.
may as well be reading the
We'll
wiki.
go further.
Like, this isn't
If we're truly going to
compelling, and I think that's one of the reasons people don't talk about this very often, is because there's no real feeling of how you're supposed to feel about any of this. There's nothing being evoked about it. It's just like something bad's happening. If we find the right guy and do the right stuff, it'll stop. Oh, good, it stopped.
Underway.
I think part of that comes from just how little
There's nothing left.
Bethesda is interested in
Smoke and fire.
doing anything to help define your character. Like, how do you feel about the fact that the Emperor showed up in your cell and told you, hey, by the way, you're the one in my dreams who was chosen to do this shit. Here's the Amulet of Kings. I'm gonna go die now. And then you were sent off on this, ridiculous odyssey to get this to a guy and then come here and rescue this other guy while hell is, literally opening up on the planet. But you don't really have a lot of options to even react to that beyond just the two identical outcomes of dialogue that you get while talking to, like, Martin. Are we supposed to go under the city?
Like,
or-
imagine a version of this game where you could either be Martin's cheerleader, where Martin really doesn't believe in himself, but you believe in him. And, like, that at least grounds your character and gives you a direction, right? You know he's the chosen one, even if he doesn't believe it or see it in himself. That would be an interesting dynamic. Or, the flip side, I can't believe you're saddled with this idiot, and there's no way that this is real. And maybe you get sort of like, really, really nihilistic and dour about, oh, this is the end times, and putting one idiot on the throne is not going to stop the hordes of Oblivion. Just being able to have those reactions would make this so much more engaging, but you're allowed to have no reaction. You're doing it because it's hashtag content for a video game.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like, people this story can lose hope. Like, there could be that moment where, like, oh, everything is lost, Oblivion is going to stop it. But your character doesn't get to have that moment, because your character doesn't really get to have an emotional connection to almost anything.
Yeah, you can, of course, like, do it in your
This is
head,
no
but
good.
there's no way to actually interact with the
The
world in
gates
which
are
you can
locked,
express
and the only way
that.
to open them is from within
Except
the
maybe
gatehouse.
you don't kill someone, or you try to kill someone and then get told, oh, too bad, they're an important NPC for the story, so they're invincible.
We can't open
I think one of the weaknesses of
The
this,
only mechanism for raising
and
it is inside
some other
the gatehouse.
Bethesda games, is just how much you end up not really feeling like your character is a part of the
Passage
world.
at the North Guardhouse.
That's something that they've been working on getting around, and I think that's something you can argue much less about, Fallout 4, for example. However, I might feel about parts of Fallout 4.
Although, I mean,
Once you
there's
got
definitely
get to
a
the
character
guardhouse,
you're supposed to
find the
be in
passage,
Fallout
and
4,
open
and
that
if you
door,
are not
then
buying into
inside the
that,
castle and secure
a lot of the stuff falls really flat. I mean, it's the complaint about the whole Preston Garvey shit.
Well, also, Sean, where's my son?
Yeah.
I like the little jump he did. Also, I find it interesting that while we were in that conversation, the effect of the rain continued, but the shader on the fire stopped dead. And I would love to know the technical reason why, and I'm sure there is one.
Well, the rain is not. I don't know if you can see this in the stream, but as I move forward, the raindrops are not like passing by me. It's just a thing that appears in front of the camera.
Yeah,
So-
is literally just like something in front of the lens.
We saw the smoke from the Gold
Yeah.
Road while out on patrol.
Oh, good.
we
We've
have?
got 2 more people.
Yeah, like the rain is
Wow,
not
it's like a
volumetric
whole
in
army
this
showed up.
game.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, hang on a second. Can you go back outside? I want to.
Captain Mattis to
Okay,
give
one
the
second.
order. Finally, a chance to
We're
fight
talking
back.
to this person now.
Yes, I have it. Why? That's right. They managed to close the
That
castle
yes, I have it.
just
Why was
before
peak
we
video
were
game
forced
voice
in
acting.
here. I'm
Nice of
afraid
this guy
you're
to
in for a
just
tough
forget
time,
that the
Frank.
gate is
The
closed
city's in bad
until
shape, and it'll be
after we
difficult
come
to
back
make
and
it to
say,
the guard
we failed to
fights.
get into the keep because the gate is
Better go
closed.
with you. We'll have to go through the chapel Undercroft, and then through what's left of the city. If I don't make it, take the key and carry on with
Undercroft is up there with Portcullis in terms of like fancy words for castle stuff.
Yeah.
Plenty of alcoves.
Okay, going outside again.
Okay,
here.
so look up.
It is
Okay.
like it is a it's not that primitive, but
Right. I'm trying to figure
it's-
out
it's
what's
very
going
much just
on
a-
here, basically.
yeah. I think it's just maybe a series of animated sprites that are just kind of floating. So, billboards, so they interact with they hit the floor and you can see that they cut off at certain places in the floor, but beyond that there's no attempt to make it like there's actually rain anywhere else. It's just following you around.
This actually does raise a lot of interesting technical questions.
I'd be surprised if nobody has done a fucking YouTube video on Rain in Oblivion.
It's the sort of thing like with that that little known fact about Half-Life series from the creator, I think Merfinus Blackamus, who just has like 100 videos of random like AI behaviors and little other things that are present in Half-Life that you can never notice after playing it 20 times.
Yeah.
I actually don't know that this game has that level of like obsessive interest out there for it. Like, I'm sure, like, okay, everybody says, okay, like, yeah, somebody is, but I don't know that it has enough of it that it will also overlap with like a creator who will go through the effort of highlighting all of it in a series of videos that are watched enough that we'll ever find them.
Sure.
I don't, because I think that, maybe in light of what I'm talking about
Oops.
here, but just for a lot of reasons, this game doesn't actually have a lot of people with a strong emotional connection to it.
It definitely does not get the kind of fandom that like Morrowind had, or even Skyrim.
Yeah, and even Skyrim, like, it has... I don't know how much this is me just kind of imposing my own viewpoints on it, but I would say that the fandom for Morrowind and the fandom for Skyrim have subtle differences to them. And I think that some of it does come from, like, the deprioritization of emotional connections.